Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to talk about the 28th update for Scorn, or the 5th edition of the Pulse Monthly as the PR person likes to call it, as well as talk about some clips that were shown off before the update came out. One of the first clips shown to us was a pretty simple video of Scorn guy reloading and then shooting one of the floppy bastards, as I call them. There's nothing too significant about this other than the fact that the reload speed was drastically increased. I don't know if this means it's indicative of the fact that there will actually be a higher focus on combat in this current iteration of the game, or if it's just a quality of life thing the Scorn devs decided to implement. In the replies to people commenting on the clip, the PR person kept emphasizing the different ways to solve things, which is a bit curious considering the fact that there's really two ways we know of how to solve a problem of running into one of those things. Either shoot it until it stops moving, or run away. While there is a bit of nuance in how you can run away from it, being able to trap it behind metal cages as we've seen in the 2020 gameplay trailer, so far what we know of boils down to the age-old simplistic fight or flight response. The next clip that was shown off is of the animation you see when you first pick up the piston weapon. It's attached to this larger construct by means of some umbilical cords, likely in order to feed it nutrients and keep the biological part of the weapon alive. The interesting thing being that the biological parts of the Scorn world have lasted just as long, if not lasted better, than the mechanical parts of the world. You can also tell this is the first time Scorn guy gets a tool at all, because it actually comes with the handle that different weapons and assets can be swapped out of, as opposed to just the weapon itself. Additionally, in the background you can see some of the meat pillars, although I have not been able to quite place those two meat pillars in any of the rooms that we've seen so far. All I can say with any certainty is that he's on the second floor of the room. And if you're hearing any strange noises faintly in the background, that's my cat purring. But anyways, that's all the pre-update material, one of which shows even more of the early game. In terms of the update proper, there actually is a bit to talk about. The header for the update is this image. It shows the same kind of hand claw that's used to interact with the metal spheres in some of the previous materials. Interestingly enough, its design is pretty similar to the hands of the bears. Those incredibly well-grasping things that allow them to walk across all the different surfaces of the facility. In our own engineering, we often utilize examples from nature in order to improve our designs, so it would make sense that people in Scorn World, especially with how much they incorporate biology into their architecture anyways, would do just the same. 3 videos were posted with the update, one being called Elevator. We've seen elevators in Scorn World before, but this seems to be a new variation of it. We rise up in this huge circular structure and then see a hallway. One of the cart assets can be seen laying down on the right side. On the bottom of the screen you can see a structure kind of turning, likely what's causing the elevator to rise up. You're able to see 2 others on the side, indicating more elevators in the room, and some leading up even further into the top circular levels. The way to make this thing work seems to be constantly pulling down with your fingers in those holes there. Not using those grips on the very top, I suppose. Nothing is easy or not disgusting in Scorn World. Another one of the videos shown presents a rare glimpse at the outside. You can see the sliding doors normally associated with a meat pillar room as the character pans up and gazes upon some sky bridge suspended within a thick, dark pink haze. The haze is even darker and less saturated than the one that appeared at the end of one of the gameplay trailers, although I think that's more indicative of the time of day in that new video than an overall change in aesthetics. Though that sliding panel is associated with meat pillar rooms, it's impossible for me to see if there are any meat pillars inside. In fact, out of all the videos, due to the haze, this one is the most obscure and difficult to make out any detail in. Although it is possible, just barely, to see the outline of an arch of an even taller structure in the area in the background. It's also possible to see faint oval structures on the very side of the tunnels. We've seen something kind of similar in the 2016 trailer, the big fleshy tube that kind of closes in on itself, one that has metallic structure surrounding it for support. If you look closely, you'll notice that the further away from the main structure you get, the more these tunnels start to droop a bit. The fact that they are sagging either means that the material that they're made of is giving way after who knows how long of neglect, or the material isn't as rigid as metal or stone. But I suppose the strangest thing is that they would prefer to use these very long self-encased tunnels rather than anything like a road or street to get from one structure to another. Perhaps the outside world was incredibly hostile to them even when this stuff was being built. It is, after all, called the Field of Decay, and I think that might actually be the proper name for this area, making it one of 3 names that we know for sure places are called. As cool as it is to see more of the outside, I think the final video is the one that actually excited me the most, because I am constantly trying to find things that we've seen in previous trailers in newer materials. The video is titled Fan, and sure enough there's a rather large one there before the camera pans away and shows the ruined nature of the tunnel all of this is housed in, perhaps even taking place in the same location or same general area as the Field of Decay. You can see a small command center where some Scorn person was likely operating some of the machinery that's within the area, but as the camera pans more to the left, something very familiar starts to appear. Something we've seen before in one of the previous trailers. Something that contained quite a bit of mystery as to what it was and what its purpose is. Though this doesn't answer the question, I do think we know what that is. It's the huge reactor looking thing from the 2016 trailer. It has the same giant pipes, the same textures, the same plug endings. We don't know if it's exactly the same one from the trailer. There could be multiple of them. We could be looking at it from a different angle, or the whole area could have gotten a massive overhaul when they decided to build the game up from the ground from scratch. But it is really cool to see something from so long ago and something that can actually be verified. But could we see something earlier? As it turns out, yes, because the last thing there is to talk about is an image that was posted with the update. The general theme of the update was the difficulty in making the aesthetics of Scorn. Like I've said before, if you want to make a simple object in a normal game, that's pretty easy. If you want to make an equivalent in Scorn, you're gonna have to go out of your way to give it an alien nature. So this picture was posted and I've gone through and tried to label some of the things that I've seen before. I've also drawn a Scorn guide to scale thanks to the bear pods that appear on the bottom, and you can see just how big some of this stuff gets compared to our character. Some stuff we're all too familiar with. There's the bears, there's a biological waste, there's some of those window assets, and what looks to be the gate that prevented the floppy bastard from attacking you in the gameplay trailer. But it's this corner where things start to get interesting. In addition to the very bottom left one where I just note that structure looks like a guy T-posing, there's some stuff that are recognizable from the pre-alpha days. The quality of the image in the video might not be very good, so I'd encourage you to look at it yourself. The one most clear to me is the chair. You can even kind of see the scooping mechanism. Additionally, it kind of looks like it has its own base surrounding it, which is pretty similar to the asset I showed off earlier. What I'm less sure of to the left of it is the mold machine. It has the same very rudimentary shape and structure, but without being able to see those metal poles on either side, it's impossible to say definitively. There also appeared what looks like those nodes on the wall of the pre-alpha trailer, and given the fact that it seems like you move around those goopy spheres, it's not surprising those aren't on what's supposed to be a environmental asset picture. Now, even though I was able to recognize quite a bit there, I do feel there is more I should have been able to recognize if it was truly an exhaustive picture of all the assets from the early levels. And it is indeed from the first couple of levels, which places the bears and the pre-alpha stuff definitively in some point early on in the game. But plenty of things from the pre-alpha trailer, a lot of the very recognizable machinery and environmental assets were missing, as well as many from the gameplay trailers. So again, I don't think this is an exhaustive picture, but nonetheless it is a bit suspicious that none of the statues whatsoever appear there, which might indeed indicate that they do take place much later on in the game than the majority of footage, especially the gameplay footage, that we've seen. If there's one area that I wish I could have gotten a better look at from the picture, it would be the one next to the blue line. These areas have their own bases similar to the pre-alpha chair, and they look to be some unknown but winged looking structure. It's very difficult to tell what it is because it doesn't look to be the same as the pillars and archways and that sort of environmental stuff you see everywhere else. But of course we'll have to wait to get any insight into what I was looking at, perhaps even waiting all the way until October. Until there's something more to talk about, I hope you enjoyed the video. I gave you something to think about and otherwise entertained you. Take care.